Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Roadhouse Last Call, the morning show that tells you about the morning, the evening, the day, before, and after, stuff we did, stuff we're going to do, things we see, the things we saw, things we're going to see. My name is Els Bells. I'm being joined by the Binda, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe we may have the Stockington back from his hiatus. Is good times on the East Coast, some AC action, some watching of old people on park benches. We may have this. Bender, how
Hola,
was your morning?
¿cómo estás?
¿Cómo estás? Oh, we're doing bilinguals?
That's all I know.
Oh, all right.
It's not Albania.
Baño? Yes, no, baño. Market might be headed for baño. It is possible that we are headed in that direction. All right, did you have a good evening?
Yeah, it was good.
All right. Let's cut through some of this clutter. There's a decent amount of headlines this morning, so let's work through them. Russia cut oil this morning to parts of EU and crude spiked. Let's see how that kind of carries through the day. Many are kind of pondering whether or not this is some type of little dopey, goofy, wily coyote move by Russia in advance of the Iran nuclear talks, which, if they do go through, that is going to put more crude out onto the market, pumping from Iran. Don't know how it's going to play out. Not even sure how I want it to play out. But that is in the headlines now, so something that we should be aware of. Unit labor costs jumped, and productivity, inched up just a little bit, but came in about flat if we're looking at it. Unit labor costs jumping is not all that friendly for our stock tickers. So let's see how that kind of plays out and what they're wanting to do moving forward. We do have CPI coming out tomorrow. That is obviously the only thing that the market really cares about and looking is inflation, inflation, inflation. So that data comes out tomorrow morning before open. So be aware with your positions. If you're planning on swinging, holding overnight, you just never know what they're going to do. The number can come in hot and they buy it, can come in hot and they sell it, and vice versa. At this point, what we do not know is how the market will react based on any given data point. It is indeed a crapshoot. Good news is not always good news. Bad news is not always good news. It's messy, to say the least. So if you're in positions, make sure you're managing them accordingly. And yeah, tomorrow will be tomorrow. SoftBank, Bender, SoftBank. So this is where it gets fun, Bender. So a lot of us kind of took it in the face, the first half of this year with our long-term portfolios, right?
Sure. Yes.
We should feel good that we're not alone with SoftBank posting the loss that it posted this year. You were not alone if you took it in the face. Wow, SoftBank. Wow. Yeah, so SoftBank takes it in the face. Very, very tech heavy, very startup heavy. They absolutely got destroyed on their last report. They're going to be doing some restructuring of their portfolio, and it looks as if they are going to cut a fairly heavy position or reduce a fairly heavy position in favorite SoFi. That is why SoFi was down 4 to 5% overnight. Let's see how that kind of plays out. We'll get back to SoFi here in a minute. Yesterday, when we were giving the report, NVIDIA came out and dropped a bomb on everybody as far as citing troubles within the gaming sector. If we go back in time, we'll notice that BBS Flow started saying that, semis were getting a little bit heavy, if you will, back on Thursday, and that has kind of followed through with semis absolutely giving back. Not to be outdone, Bender, Micron comes through today and says, hey, we got to cut Q4 outlook. It just ain't there. Right? So they're joining the club as far as semis and cutting guidance. They said they expect Q4 revenue about 6.8 billion to 7.6. Analysts were looking for 9. That is a pretty heavy smack in the face. If we're looking for positive news within the sector, Qualcomm came out and basically saying that they're going to invest an additional 4.2 billion in semiconductors from global foundries. That could be looked upon as being positive. So Global Found GFS is a ticker for Global Foundries. Also might want to take a peek at AMAT to see what's going on over there. This is they do the equipment and whatnots. Let's see how that kind of plays out. So semis have both good and bad news going on with them at the same time. The one thing that we do know, flow does not lie. So let's keep an eye on that. BABA looks like they're going to list in Hong Kong early next year. I think May 2022 is the target date. Let's watch the flow around that. Flow on BABA has been pretty interesting. We had that big move up and then obviously the big move down. Geopolitically, it's not exactly picking daisies over there with U.S. and China and Taiwan. So let's see how that kind of reacts to the Asian ticker flow today. JD flow yesterday was not all that friendly. ABA, kind of stable over there. Yesterday, we also had the VIX making a 3-month low. One thing that we talked about yesterday a little bit throughout the day and then coming into today is the fact that nobody feels any need in any capacity to buy the VIX. Just not buying it. Not buying it in any capacity as of yesterday. VIX is up a little bit this morning. Let's see exactly what they want to do with that. We'll be able to see it on flow like we always do. We'll be able to see it on the chart like we always do. But we have to keep our eyes open when we start getting 3-month lows and shit like that. Novax, another pharma, bio, cut guidance. NCLH took it in the face with wider than expected losses. Hilton held its own. Here's an interesting one. Upstart, Bender. Upstart took it in the face. With a pretty severe guide down at the same time.
With their lending to maybe people that might not pay back?
Well, subprime lending, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're in this environment. It's like the weak are getting bludgeoned. So lending in that atmosphere is going to be really tough. They're given the choice. It's like, do we lend money to very questionable candidates or do we not? It's not good for their business, but the fact that they're saying, hey, we're not tossing money out left and right could be looked upon as being somewhat positive. That's if we're looking, for the rainbow, if we're trying to have those, the nice rose colored glasses on to make everything look good. That is Upstart. You know what's interesting about that? It is the exact opposite of the model that SoFi uses.
Right.
SoFi only
that's
targets.
Where you were going with this.
Right. Only targets prime lenders. Credit scores, what was it, above 720?
Yeah, they said their average FICO score was 740.
And their annual income was what? Like 170, 100. Like it was a nice income base. So we're talking about two different ends of the spectrum as far as two new businesses kind of operating with two different models. One is saying that they're going to be strong. The other one saying, hey, we're kind of fucked. Yeah. It's just the way it is. Yeah. This SoFi will be on watch moving forward, but we have to let all this settle out, especially with the SoftBank decision to see exactly how that will play out. Reporting after hours tonight, we have Coin and Roblox also Win. Win will be interesting. Roblox should be quite interesting. It's something to keep an eye on. It's had one hell of a run off the bottom. We have to be aware of those tickers that are run off the bottom. If there is nothing special within that ER, odds are they're going to get bludgeoned. So let's be aware. Also, Apple had a dark pool of 1.3 billion live intraday yesterday. It dropped and dropped and dropped. So it is well underneath that dark pool. I'm sure maybe Stockington will get into that a little bit. Finally, Boeing is set to continue its 787 deliveries. Thank you, Sun, for catching that news yesterday. A lot of people caught that move. Let's keep an eye on murder plane flow. Let's see if there's some opportunities within there. With that being said, Binda.
Yes.
Binda, tell us about the lines.
All right. Well, here, I'm going to start with the chart.
There you go. There's a ES chart, 34 minute. You can very clearly see the parallel channel that we are in. We're in, are teasing with not being in anymore. I think that is worth paying attention to this morning. The bottom, that trendline support goes back to, I know you can't see it in that chart, it goes back to July 14th. So we fell just out, you can see that purple trend line, we gave that up yesterday, and that's where we got that drawdown. Went down and tested the trendline support of that parallel channel, and that's where we're at right now. We fell through it and came back up to test it from the bottom. So let's see what they do this morning with it. If they decide to reclaim that, great. We might have a shot at, you know, some upside. If they are unable to reclaim it or hold it and, you know, go ahead and say, nope, that is no longer trendline support, then we start looking at levels below. So the levels that I have below, previous support, 4120. 4112 is the 100 MA on the daily. Then you've got the 4100 whole number, previous support at 4090, and a trend line at 4080. And I hate when they're 10 points apart, but that's what we're looking at. Levels above, that trend line resistance would come in around 4133. That's what we've got to get over. And once we do, then we're staring at all the moving averages on the 60 minute. 4143 to 4146 has the 10, the 20, and the 50. All come into play right there. That's going to be a big level. If we get above that, we reclaim that trend line and we get back above 4133 up to 4146, that's going to be the challenge of the day. Above that, you got to fib up at 4184, and 4190 is the midpoint of this channel. Any questions about that, or are you seeing something similar?
I'm seeing something similar. And it's just tough because it's like we talked about yesterday how there were several moves being made post ER as far as buying results that were less than stellar. And then we're coming back in through, and one of the ones that ran the hottest and hardest being semis. You know, it's like pick an hour, any hour, and we have another guide down effectively when it comes to that sector. So it's like you have to start looking at that and balance it all together. That yeah, and then we take the fact that we're at a 3-month low on a VIX, at least as of yesterday we were. We have the dollar trying to figure out what it wants to be when it grows up. I don't know. It's like it becomes difficult to look at some of these charts and being like, yeah, no. It's like if I look at the chart, if you're saying that it's falling out of this little trend line, and I look at the flow, and there's been a lack of bull over the past several days. There's also been several bets being placed, pretty heavy bets to the downside that have been placed. And our whale last night after hours lowered the hedge from, I believe, 94 to 91, 394 to 391. So that hedge was pushed down yesterday after hours, which usually, and I'm not saying it's always, about 80% of the time, it's like whichever way that hedge moves, the market moves with it. So we had that hedge being moved up all the way from like the 370s all the way up to like, I think 397. Now that hedge is ticking back down to 391. Now we can call it a hedge, we can call it directional, we can call it a lot of different things. What we do know is that about 80% of the time the market tends to move in that direction based on that big boy that comes in and drops 10 million at a time in a certain direction. That's what we do know. So in looking at all this, it becomes very, very curious, especially heading into the CPI print tomorrow. It's like, what are we doing? We haven't really risked off. We've risked off a little bit, but we really haven't risked off going into it. We bought sectors that weren't all that great. Amazon and Apple still have massive gaps on the daily. Where are we and where are we going? I know one tool that absolutely tells us which way we should be going, and that's flow. And bull has kind of left the building here a little bit. But in saying that, bear has not exactly, sunk his teeth into it and said, we're going to rip your heart out. That hasn't happened either. So I don't know. I think we have to walk into this with kind of eyes wide open, really, really being honest brokers when it comes to the information coming through flow, when it comes to the news sources. I think that has to be our priority. And then staying very abreast of these levels, Bender. Thank you again for posting them. I think it's very important that we be aware. And that's the biggest thing. We have to be aware if we're going to be successful. Ankington, you back from your little trip?
I'm back. I'm
Look
ready.
at this. Look at
I'm
this.
here.
He's back. Okay.
Do we save the quick trip recap or do we get into levels?
Let's do levels, and then let's maybe hear about how you fed a pigeon or two. I don't know.
Or the bird lady. All right. So yes, Apple dark pool yesterday, 1.3 billion at 166.39, and now we're not even close to that at the moment. So I put my new lines and triggers and stuff here in the room. Apple, I had this line already at 164.2, so we'd be looking to see if we can break that if we're going to go up. That was an important line from yesterday. And then we got a line from Neo a while back, 163.17, kind of lines up with a couple other things I had, so we can use it if we're going to go down. Then AMD, done with the EAR, so now I'm back on the AMD train watching this one. 200 million dark pool last night at 100.1, which it tried to get up there this morning and got the smackdown. So I'm going to be watching to take AMD long, potentially right around yesterday's lower orb, 99.1. I already had that I believe was going to be to take it short if we held, but we did not pre-market. And then pre-market, I would just use AMD's support, which was 97.8 pre-market, so it's pretty close down there. Amazon, that one also another drift down and a little bit of dark pool last night. Amazon, they hit 285 million at 141.96. So we did drift down on Amazon as well. I'll be looking for upside if it can break above 139 flat, and then to the downside 138 seemed important pre-market. Couple other interesting dark pools. PayPal had a good one. I think that was a big gap down this morning. Microsoft 280.32 is the line where they hit it with 368 million from last night. I believe those are the big ones. SPY had a bit, but always the big one to remember is basically where we are now, 412, ton of money right there. The one from the other day was 431 was the line for SPY dark pool now above, but that's all I got for my levels.
Okay. So regarding your AMD, they came in fairly heavily, hitting the 99 and 96 puts for this week on AMD yesterday.
Okay.
It's like so it's like when we start getting into what I'm going to be looking out for as the day kind of progresses. AMD, seeing that it's a topic, I'm rewatching to see what they're doing with those 99 puts and 96 puts. Are they covering or are they adding? It's like, what are they doing over there with AMD? Amazon, same thing. It's like, I want to see what they're doing. We have a like 7.75% gap on the daily on Amazon. If nothing else, I think we should, in theory, test the top bottom of that gap. Flow had kind of teetered out at Amazon a little bit. Flow had definitely teetered out of Apple. They did try to salvage Apple yesterday by banging the crap out of the 165 calls. They stayed in the majority of those, but they came in on the bid on the 167.50s as the day wore on. Didn't see a lot of put flow on Apple yesterday, which we'll see how that kind of manifests today, whether or not they're coming in and hitting these 162.50s, or are they hitting the 160 puts? What are they doing? Those are going to be the tells in the trigger overall, at least from my standpoint and what I'm watching when it comes to those. So Apple, AMD, I think those are two really, really great sentiment tickers to keep an eye on. Again, the flow on AMD, they hit the 99 puts, they hit the 96 puts, want to keep my eye on those. Everybody in the room knows that I've been short semi since Thursday, and I'm going to look to profit take today as SOXX makes its way over 40. So obviously I have somewhat of a bear bias mixed in right now, but I'm going to be looking to profit take throughout the day going into the CPI print tomorrow. Because again, as we started off the show, we do not know how the market will react to data. We do not know. It is more of a guess on which way the market will react when it comes to data than it is to playing YOLO on an ER. Just have no idea. So take profit, at least from my standpoint, and be aware of the flow. Again, Apple, Amazon, very important. AMD, very important. All of these items are very, very important when we're watching flow today. I think we also have to watch out for flow on murder loan, AFRM, Affirm. Upstart's guidance probably doesn't speak very well to their business model, if we're being fair. And we're looking at it the right way. We need to take an eye on that one also. Keep an eye on that flow at the same time. The last piece I want to leave everybody with, and then I'll toss it back to Bender before we close. The high pivot today for SPY is 415.30. Low pivot is 409.50. So if we approach either one of those two levels, definitely be aware. Outside of that, Bender, I don't have anything else, buddy. You have anything?
I do not have anything else. I think we covered it.
You have anything that you think we need to pay attention to, or we're just kind of just?
I mean, that trend line, if we above it or below it, will, I think, decide. You know, we could chop into CPI tomorrow, but that trend line is going to be what I'll be watching for. Doesn't kind of really tell.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We have 18 minutes until open. 18 minutes until open. There's some good actionable information for us to kind of peer through and get ready for the day. So let's do that and come back and kill it. See y'all soon.